Tired of the same old you? Tired of being overweight and under-attractive? Yeah!
Oh, hello. I'm White Goodman, owner, operator, and founder of Globo Gym America Corp. And I'm here to tell you that you don't have to be stuck with what you got. Nice job, Susie. You call that a sit-up? Don't slack, Trevor. I'm watching you. Globo Gym employs a highly trained, quasi-cultural staff of personal alteration specialists. What the hell? And with our competitively priced on-site cosmetic surgery, we can turn that Frankenstein you see in the mirror every morning into a Frankenfine.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another week of Muskies on Tap. This week, we got Bryan Schaeffer on from Schaeffer Outdoors, and one of the co-hosts on here tonight for the podcast is going to be none other than Max Manti on our 91st episode. Max, how you doing tonight?
Doing good. Ready to talk some Muskies with Mr. Schaeffer here. Just got done watching his recent episode where he was featured on Keys Outdoors. So looking forward to chatting a little bit about that. Maybe some spring fishing. We got show season kind of right in the thick of that right now. So we'll kind of check in here with Bryan, see where he's headed to this winter and kind of what's been keeping him busy during, these cold months. We feel like we've actually gotten a true winter this year. I mean, snow still hasn't been quite what I'm sure everybody's kind of wanted it to be, but man, it's been surely been cold enough. Plenty of ice up there, I'm sure, huh, fellas?
There's tons. I mean, I think the least amount I've seen right now is about 18 inches of ice. I haven't been on a lake with much more. I've heard that there's some more, but yeah, with the snow and the snowmobiles, I mean, even on like a Monday, you'll see snowmobile groups flying by. So I think it's really helped the businesses up here. We just got done doing pond hockey last weekend. I was on a team with some high school buddies and some of their friends from college, and we had a blast. Kind of got our butts whooped on Saturday, but it is what it is. It was good to get out there. I think our team was a little off on conditioning compared to the people we were playing against. A lot of current
little stung from
hockey
Friday night
players.
too, I bet.
Yeah, Friday night. It
Get
came
high
fast in the
schoolers playing
morning.
there?
No, it's a 21 plus
Okay.
pond hockey thing. I think it used to be sponsored by Labatt, and I know this year they had Coors. You were given a free 12-pack for every game you play.
Oh,
Damn, pretty good
We'll
deal.
leave it at that.
Well,
I had a lot
that
of
is
lot of
the
fun.
that is the voice that you hear of none other than Mr. Bryan Schaeffer from Schaeffer Outdoors. He was nice enough to hop on here with us this evening, be kind of part of our three-man crew we got here. As our Brian Eckel is out with the flu this week, so he's on the mend. Bryan Schaeffer is gonna definitely be a very welcomed addition for our Bryan. Good swap out of Bryan's in my opinion. But without further ado, let's bring him in here. Bryan Schaeffer, how you doing this evening?
all right, buddy. Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, no problem.
Talk some
Awesome to have
fishing.
you back on. I was just looking at the when we had you last, our first time with you was episode 42. So if you want to get more of the background on Bryan, head over there. I believe we have a nice long chat. I'm looking at that. That was a 2.5 hour podcast. I think we went through a lot of stories and history and all sorts of
That would
stuff.
definitely
But
be a record for Mr. Schaeffer.
right, I remember you saying that. We'll see what we can carry with, tonight on time wise. We'll just see where the convo takes us. But like myself going to Milwaukee, you are as well, Bryan. Where are you going to be standing in for booth wise?
I'm working the Musky Innovations booth again.
Nice.
Typical for the Milwaukee show. Showing off
Perfect.
the new colors and new products. I don't think there's any new products. It's basically show colors.
Yep, I believe it is. I already picked up 1 or 3 from Chicago show.
Sure.
I got that new perch one. Can't see it for the listeners listening, but I really dig this one a lot.
Yeah. Where won't that work?
Right?
It's a
I
good
couldn't
point.
pass it.
Especially on your chain, that's gonna be like lights out.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
gonna be
any orange
handy.
belly perch is in my opinion like one of the best colors of all time for like a minnow bait or rubber in
Definitely.
that state
Yeah,
of water.
there's no water that it wouldn't work, from
Hmm.
south to north.
Right. Was there
So
oh, go ahead, Max.
I was just gonna ask, how long have you been with Musky Innovations? Like, I don't know, friendship wise or professionally, I guess, because last time we hung out outside of the podcast was during the Minnesota Muskie Expo for me, and you were at the Innovations booth as well.
Yep.
So have you been
Well,
linked
I've
up with
just been
Brad for
working
a
with
while now?
them 4 years now, maybe 4 or 5 years.
Okay,
At their booth. So
gotcha. Yeah, he seems like a good innovator of like rubber baits and kind of, has kind of shaped the landscape for all that stuff. I mean, I don't know, like going back, I know we kind of probably talked about this in that first podcast we had you on, but I'm always curious to like hear people's stories of when they first started throwing rubber baits. I don't know if Innovations was the first stuff that you threw on the rubber side of things, but like,
was mine
you're,
for sure.
yeah, do you remember when you made that jump to throwing rubber?
No, it was a long time ago. I think everyone bought one right away and then it sat in
Yeah.
their tackle boxes forever. Um,
Was it because people didn't have like the gear to throw it because it came out so long ago?
I don't know.
Because the reels and rods
I'm
handle
sure that
them?
was part of it. But I mean, at the
Yeah.
time, most of them was all, the regular. And they had that 7 strand or 9 strand wire in them. Um, so they weren't super heavy, but I think people just
Oh,
threw it like a
interesting.
big Mr. Twister. Oh, that's cool. And put it back in their box. But
This, this could be a dumb question, but when you started throwing rubber, like was it common knowledge that like it was a pull pause bait and like that was the style to work it, or were people kind of like figuring it out on their own terms of, how they wanted to work these rubber baits? I mean, now you see everybody is doing it, every way
oh,
imaginable.
right. Ripping
Um,
their shoulders off to just light little tears, pumps on them. Yeah, back then, boy, that's a good question. I can't really remember back how everyone was using them and how it started off. I'd have to think on that one.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious because like, now like when we started throwing rubber baits, I've told the story before, but like our first time really throwing rubber baits, Gus actually snapped a rod in half just working a
Yes.
Medusa.
Sure.
Was it a mid Medusa or a regular
Mid,
Medusa? Mid
mid for
Medusa
sure.
snapped a rod doing that. And, that's hilarious to think of now with the gear that we're using. It's like, those are little play toys, like a mid Medusa, just kind of you can flick with your wrist around it and, work that thing like crazy.
Right.
But I just am like, when those baits came out and think about like a mag dog or a pounder, people were probably like, so I gotta freaking rip my shoulders off for 8 straight hours if I want to use this bait.
Pounders, I mean, I started using them. God, see, all these are good questions. I can't even like time just flies. It seems like it wasn't that long ago, but it was probably, pretty damn long ago. But like we all started off with the regular sized dog. Then the mags came and then we started getting some better equipment because like when I started off with a 6 foot St. Croix rod, which was a pull cue basically, so it could handle some of that stuff, but it was all 6500s and 5500s um with like Dacron line. But yeah, I definitely wasn't being very aggressive, that I know, because there wasn't nothing aggressive back then.
Right. Yeah, there's no like reaction bite, with
No,
the style Max is just describing with
no.
ripping our arms out and whatnot. Another rubber bait that our dad and actually our uncle as well bring up to us as they always ask, is like, what about the creature, which is like a really old rubber bait. Have you ever heard of that one?
Oh yeah. From what's that guy that was up in Eagle River there? Um Gene Curtis, right?
Maybe. I wish I knew
It was more of a jig
to
flap
confirm.
tail jig. And
Yeah, it's
I
a
would have to
funky
get
looking
some of
thing.
them. What's that?
It was just a funky looking thing. We got one in a tackle box laying in the
If
garage
I'm
right
thinking of
now.
the right thing, it was from Gene Curtis, kind of like a lizard with a flap tail.
Mm-hmm.
And I would get some from a guy named Jim Dembeck down in the Milwaukee, Pewaukee area. He would make some too, but that were pretty nice. But I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
it's like a flathead jig head.
Yep. It came with, yeah, it was a jig head and then had a like a chain almost with another hook or
Yep,
kind of
yep.
more towards the back. It was interesting.
Yeah,
I haven't
I'm pretty sure that's what I'm thinking of.
I haven't tried throwing it because I don't know if I trust the hardware on it anymore.
Okay.
It's been sitting, not doing much. I could probably upgrade that. But yeah, it just looks like a clump of gold
Yeah, if I remember right, that
rubber.
was Gene Curtis up in Eagle River there area, one of his baits.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, it's just like in the soft plastic game. It's like why it makes sense why muskies love tubes. I mean, it's literally just a larger size of a bass tube that catches tons of bass every
Exactly.
year for everybody. But
Exactly.
Fish just love tubes. Every
they
species.
do.
Crappies, bass,
Well,
walleye,
it's,
muskies.
just the perfect shape and size of the bait, of a
Hmm.
fish.
Yeah. Now, I'm just always curious about the rubber stuff because, like, I feel like we've had so many people on, especially the guys that we get on from Minnesota. It's like everyone talks about the heyday of when, like, the cowgirl came out, and that was like just nuts. Can't remember who we just had on, but they were talking about how it like perfectly coincided with like that first massive stocking class in Minnesota. It was like right when all those fish reached their peak, was like right when the cowgirl came out. So it was like this
It was
perfect
Steve.
storm of just,
Right, for
yeah,
sure.
big dumb fish like kind of, hitting at the same time. And one thing I don't think we really have talked about is like introducing rubber to musky fishing. Like obviously, it's kind of common knowledge now, like everyone throws it, but I always think back to those days when it was like, just starting to kind of come on and become the hot new thing because it just was like so different than throwing a showgirl or any of the other stuff that you probably a Suic or something like that, that people were throwing. It's
Right.
like, all right, I gotta throw this thing, the bulldog. Like, what the hell
I
is
think
that?
if I was to give credit to anyone, it would have to be Mark Lajewski that put rubber on the map big time, and the hard rips. And when he started winning tournaments and it was always on rubber, and I just seen the rubber explode. And I'll
Hmm.
give that guy a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, it's really fun to watch him, in tournaments. We'd love to get him on the podcast at some point in time. We've talked to them here and there a little bit at the PMTT events, but um, watching him work rubber is definitely, you can tell he's been doing it for a long time. Like, you see somebody with a lot of practice at something, and they're not saying that we're hawking his spots or anything, but when you drive by him and he's working an area and you watch him rip a big rubber bait, you're like, it definitely looks a little different. It's got its
Right.
own kind of little unique, way. Everyone does, but it's kind of cool to see. You can tell he's been, like I said, you can tell he's got some practice throwing some rubber
Oh yeah, for
baits.
sure. I mean, to me, in my eyes, he was like the first one to really punch rubber on the map and really use it hardcore 24/7 and just winning all the tournaments. I mean, a lot of guys who were fishing everything else, and he was just winning tournament after tournament on rubber, and people, seeing into it, and it just kind of caught on fire.
Tough one to keep a secret.
Yeah.
It's, it's a tough thing. Yeah, if he's winning, it's tough to keep that secret, especially when people start seeing what you're throwing and whatnot. We've had that before. We're throwing a certain color, and what happened, Max, to that one person? They're like, "Yeah, we saw you throwing that one color, so we threw it too, and we caught one." Like,
Yeah.
ah,
Yeah.
Well, it's even like the tournaments back there for him, but then they had the bad fish videos and all that. I mean, it's just the ripping of the rubber and the super hard rips and everything. I mean, that they brought all that to the map. I'd give him credit for all that for sure. So I don't
yeah,
know. I don't really know anyone else that was doing that back then.
I don't either. I mean, if somebody who's listening knows or wants to give us or give somebody credit, feel free to
Hmm.
reach out to us. But yeah, I believe Lajewski is one of the first that I've heard of as well, and love the old Badfish media films that he does with a few of those other guys. He's usually like most of the fish that Lajewski caught in that is on a pounder. It seems like every time it showed him, it's like, oh, another one on the pounder, another one on the pounder.
Yeah,
And
soaking wet, you know, what it's 140, 150, and he's just ripping pounders all day long.
I mean, if you work the right muscles and whatnot, you can start to get jacked and ready to musky fish.
Yeah,
I've been
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
you see
trying to
Gus.
get
the guys with bows pulling back, you know, they're
Yeah.
120 pound soaking wet pulling 80-pound bows too. It's the same thing, just
Yeah.
an art.
Well, yeah. What are you clocking in at these days, Gus?
little over a buck 50.
Hey, that ain't bad.
Yep, yep. And trying to get to the gym here in the winter and bulk up for the season because I know when I'm going to be ripping and sweating, I'll be losing weight throughout the summer, to be honest.
See, I'm the opposite. I lose weight in the winter, go to the gym, eat healthy, and then all of a sudden it's fishing season, guide season. We're sitting, stopping, eating burgers, beers.
I'm the same way as you. I always crack up like why do I gain so much weight in the summer? And it's like, well, if I'm fishing every weekend, I'm spending about 8 hours in the car. That's two Culver stops. And quick trip for breakfast or McDonald's for breakfast every morning, followed by a bunch of bags of Pringles, Red Bulls, and you name it. Like, oh yeah, that probably adds up after a couple months of doing
Exactly.
that.
That's fair. That's fair. I feel like I alone just sweat it all out or something. I'm not really sure how I maintained that weight last year.
It'd be
Um,
interesting to see the calories you burn by just casting, you know, if there's a way
yeah,
to,
I don't have like a Apple Watch or a fitness watch at all to know like how much it's moving all day.
I don't
I
think
would,
it's that much.
no, it can't be.
I
At
don't
least not
know.
by my scale, it doesn't show it's that much.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
definitely not offsetting the Butterburger Deluxe. That's
No.
for sure.
But
So
go
you, yeah, so
ahead.
you just spent some good time. We just watched a video with you at Keys Outdoors, where you guys did a little bit of a road trip. Speaking of spending some time in the car and getting away from your neck of the woods. Great episode. I mean, I guess it was two-parter, which is always a good deal with the Keys stuff because that means you guys are hammering fish. Um, is that an area that you guys went to? Like it seemed like you guys kind of have been there before or knew about it. But with that Great Lakes fishing, like was that something you guys did it first, like out on a limb, or how'd you guys kind of get plugged into that?
Well, that's Keys. Keys hit that general area there a couple times before I went out there with him, and he just keeps, you know, checking new spots. If he hears through the grapevine, you know, "Oh, there's some muskies being seen around this area, you know, check it out." And he goes, Schaeffer, you want to go, you know, check this out area out? And so we're just constantly checking out new areas around the Great Lakes and basically just finding musky spots, you know, we're driving around and there's muskies in the area. It's supposed to be muskies here. So you find some weeds and you start fishing it and you know, and that last program, that that was a crazy week because we got there and we found the weeds. We actually the spot we went to there, we've already fished it before. So we were familiar with that area. And the fish were a lot shallower that week we got there. And we probably moved like 20 fish on that first day. And I think I caught like two or three. And we are thinking, wow, this is going to be a great week. We're going to have, you know, tons of fish. And then that night the weather changed and it dropped the water temperatures about 7 degrees. And they shut everything right down, shut everything down. And on those Great Lakes fish, they're so touchy with that.
Yeah, it seems like they move in big waves like that. I mean,
Yeah.
I've heard people talk about that in the lower bay and those typical weed beds. It's like as soon as they get first word that they're in the weed beds, whether it's late July or early August, people just start hammering it. And it seems common that people catch them, maybe not on back-to-back casts. I mean, maybe because you hear about people doubling up trolling. It's rare, but stuff like that. But it seems like those not only do the Great Lakes fish want to move a lot, like they travel a lot, but they go in packs, like they're following stuff. Are they where you're at? Are they still following perch like that, or is there different forage that you think
You
that
know, I
they're
don't,
after?
to be honest, I really don't know in that area up there. We didn't see like the schools of perch or anything. Um, I know there's a lot of whitefish in the area, but we were fishing shallow, so it wasn't the whitefish there. And I think they were just hitting, they're
Yeah,
probably perch in there and whatnot. Um, but I'm not familiar. I'm not a Great Lakes specialist or nothing. Even Green Bay, the only time I really fish out there is with a friend or if Keys needs someone to go out there with. But I do know they like Green Bay. You can go out there one day and just spank them, and then the next day go out there and see nothing. No one.
That would be like my biggest concern with Great Lakes fishing, especially in areas like, you and Keys go to where it's like, oh, through the grapevine, I've heard there's fish here or whatever. Um, it's just such a vast amount of water where like you're not fishing a 600 or even like 400 or whatever acre lake where it's like if you're not catching, you're like, well, we know they're here. It's just, they're not on. Where it feels like with the Great Lakes, that it could almost be like, you're not seeing them or they're not going. It could be like, well, they're either not on or they're just like simply not in this area at all. We could just
Right.
be throwing to nothing, and that I think to me that would kind of wig me out a little bit. Like confidence wise, if I went a couple hours without seeing a fish, I'd be like, is there a muskie within 2 miles of me right now? Like,
Right.
I don't know. If you, I mean, if that happened to you guys, like, do you think that way too, or is
Oh
it
yeah. Like
done it a few times?
the area we fished, this is the second time I fished it. We fished just north of there a couple times, and the first time we went here, like he's always says, he says, how would you fish this if it was home water? You just find the weed edge, find some weeds, find the weed edge, and just do what you do. And that's kind of what we did the first time we went there, but we stayed a week and I think we only caught like 2 fish on the last day. So it was like,
Oh,
wow, is there fish here or not? But we seen a few throughout the week, and so we knew they were there. So, and then this last time we came back, we kind of started the same way. We weren't seeing much, and we moved into some thicker clumps, and that's where we found the fish. But like I said, once the cold front came, then they vanished. There was no longer any fish up in the shallows. And then we started fishing some deep weed edges, but then it turned into Great Lakes musky fishing again. It was just really tough. It was like, we're there, so we got to put up with it and keep trying until we get that fish. But it's tough. It's a mental game, that's for sure.
yeah, I fully believe that. I haven't really tried the whole I've only been to Green Bay a few times in other people's boats, just kind of doing the typical program, but I haven't really, in the back of my mind, I've always thought about doing a couple adventures into the abyss of the Bay or Michigan or wherever, um, on after these fish. But I guess, you answered my question. They're probably going after perch, but when you say whitefish, are there, you don't have to give away any parts of the spot or whatever, but are there like rocks at all in the area?
Oh yeah.
Or
Yeah, there's everything up there.
would you target that at all in the summer, or do you
We
think
tried and it was nothing. There was nothing there.
nothing?
And
Interesting.
and again, that's all timing, and it's
Hmm.
we hit all different weed beds and we tried rocks and some suspended fish and stuff, but it's such big mass areas. It's like a couple days it looked so good we fish it and it was like pike after pike. In fact, I told them on that show, I said we should film every pike we catch and just do like a speed shot through because I bet we caught 50 pike. And I was like, oh, there's one. Oh, pike, oh, pike, oh, pike, oh, pike.
Would that be a turn off on the spot if you caught that many pike, or were muskies still there with the pike?
No, it was a turnoff. Yeah.
It was. Okay.
Yeah, where we were catching the muskies, we weren't catching any pike at all.
huh.
Hmm.
And like
That's good to know.
he's still learning it, and I've been up there a few times with him, so it is kind of like I said, just a mental game and just kind of push through it. They're there, but are they here because it's such big water, or do they move a mile down the system, or are they
Yeah,
here on lockdown, sitting on the bottom? You just got to keep.
probably,
But that's musky
probably,
fish. I guess that's like anywhere.
Hmm.
yeah, true. Probably feels weird going from fishing something like that to then going back to your home waters where you're at and fishing that, it's like, oh my God, I can see land in all four directions.
Oh, exactly. Well, it's almost nicer because you don't know what to expect, because you're up there, it's big water, and you're like, okay, it's tough, but you never know. Where when you come home, you've been fishing it for so long, and you know when they're off, it's like, okay, they're off, they're not going to be on for another 2 hours, but and your confidence kind of crappy because you kind of know when they're going to go. And
Hmm.
Last question with the Great Lakes stuff. So obviously, you go up there for a reason. I think in the episode you guys talked about dodging some hot water and in northern Wisconsin, kind of perfect time to get up there and try the Great Lakes stuff. So when you're up there, I mean, the top end potential of those fish, is it similar to Green Bay up in that neck of the woods that you guys were at, or is it a little different? I mean, I gotta think there's probably still some of those giant top end fish that you see get kicked out of Green Bay. Like, would it be crazy to see some north of 50-inch fish up by
oh,
where you
for
guys are
sure.
going?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
he's caught them up there already. And that
Hmm.
whole system, it goes through Ontario and what's the other one up there where they catch all those monsters?
Or Georgian Bay.
Georgian Bay. And it's all connected, right? All through that area here on. So yeah, there's absolute monsters up there. I think their biggest one he's caught on the show was like 52 and a half. That was quite a bit north of where we were. So,
Okay.
but yeah,
Yeah.
there's
Wow.
for sure. And then the whitefish are, 20 something inches and they actually whitefish, netting up there and everything. So yeah, there's monsters, no doubt about it.
They're
Through the
they're
whole system,
snacking on some pretty big forage up there.
for sure. Yeah.
They're well fed.
Yeah, they're everywhere. You just got to put your time in. And that's one thing with Keys. He's not afraid to put his time in on, you know, it's been plenty of trips that we've done already where almost a week of fishing and absolutely nothing to show for it. And it's like, oh, yeah, well, next week.
It seemed to be kind of
Man.
a common theme on his show this year that like so far at least to the episodes that he's put out that it's like it was kind of a struggle bus for him. And last time we had you on the podcast, we talked about your season in 2023 because we had you on in 24. So let's maybe just chat on that real quick. Your last year in northern Wisconsin, it felt like a little bit of a mixed bag depending on who you talked with. Um, how was your season, guide wise, personal wise, as far as fish caught and size of
Uh,
fish? Give us the lowdown there.
it was a crazy year, and just to go back to the Key show, he kind of wrote it off really well, in the first few shows. Because I mean, we didn't get any snow through last winter, so everyone was afraid that the lakes were going to be, low, the rivers were going to be low. Everything kind of evens out in the end, usually does. And once the season started, then we got rain, but we got rain for a month and a half. So then it kind of
Yeah, it
went
was
the opposite
wild.
direction, and then it got really cold, rain, and then after that, it shot up to 90 degrees. So it was kind of a crazy year, but as far as the whole year in general, I mean, it was decent. It was a roller coaster, no doubt. We had some of the worst days of fishing I've seen in a long time and some really good days. But as far as size wise, I think the sizes were up a little higher. We caught a lot of decent sized fish. Nothing extraordinary. We didn't boat anything over 50 last year. So, but it was
That's
all
right.
pretty much weed orientated too. There was a couple lakes that I fished that were pretty decent as far as suspended bite going on. And basically you had to have the Cisco's because it seemed like most of the bait fish as far as crappie and perch and that stayed in the weeds last year. But if there's any kind of Cisco pattern going on
Mm.
in that lake, we found some suspended fish.
That's uh that's kind of interesting to hear myself because I personally went for a suspended bite on non-Cisco based lakes and was trying that again. And the bug hatch, excuse me, didn't seem to be very good. And I
Right.
struggled. I didn't find that much. And the fish were absolutely in the weeds a ton. And
Hmm.
I completely agree. If we were fishing and then honestly, even through the year when kind of the suspended thing typically would end, by July time frame or whatnot, um, Cisco-based lakes, like yeah, the weed bite was good. I hammered that home pretty good. I'm trying to think off the top of my head if I really got that many on rocks. I'd have to think about it. There was a few and they were midsummer or fall. Um, but the rock bite didn't seem to be like what I was hoping for. But then again, I fish a lot of weed-based stuff. And I know you fish a mixture of all kinds as well. Um, did you did you find a particular bait that did better in those open water situations?
Um,
Or like presentation wise, like kind of how to get them? Um, because another thing I tried a
we
bunch
caught
this year was trolling, and
quite
that
a
was
few
tough.
trolling, and we did really well on Bakers
Oh, nice.
trolling last year. It was more of an early summer um fight we came into, but then during the summer it was pretty much blades right at dusk and into dark. And
Yeah.
it wasn't the big blades, it was more like triggers. We did really well on. So, and that was going into the dark. So, and some big crankbaits, but it was pretty much all weeds too. The rocks really never shine for us. And even the deep sandgrass throughout the summer too was kind of vacant of fish.
We
At
didn't
least
get
on the ones that I
much.
did. I'm sure other guys, did okay on.
Yeah. I think overall, from what I heard, the sandgrass bite was okay. I personally did not chase after it much this year. Um, I seemed to really, when I was guiding, I seemed to really hunker down, and it seemed like now looking back at pretty much every lake I was venturing to that was brand new to me, it was basically weeds
Yeah.
fishing. So,
Yeah,
it
I'm
is
kind of
diverse.
same boat with sandgrass too. I mean, I didn't fish it a ton this year just with the clientele I had. We just I didn't do it a ton, but the few times I did, it wasn't very productive for me. But like anything I say, there's going to be someone on the other side saying the total opposite.
Hmm.
I'll hear stuff too, and it's like, holy crap, I didn't see any of that.
Yeah, I think as much of a rock bite I got onto, Max, was that day you and I were out, and then Dad joined myself when you had to leave, and we had three nice fish checking out new spots. July, early July, I believe that was. Do you remember that one? You
Yeah.
got the one in the figure eight. I stabbed my thumb with the hook
Hmm.
that day.
Yeah. Well, I think,
Remember
we
that one?
talked. Yeah, yeah,
What's
that
that?
was pretty funny. Like, oh
It is
crap. I'm
funny.
like, what happened? And I look at his hand, I'm like, oh, that doesn't look good. Um, yeah, yeah, I mean, we talked about that a good bit this last summer, like when we'd have, people on that were guiding up north, and we talked about the amount of big fish that were being caught shallow water this last summer. And I mean, looking back, I think, this is something I can kind of summarize from that. It feels like kind of what you're talking with a lot of the bait fishing stuff and like the open water bite not really being as prevalent this last year. It felt like a lot of that food never really left the weeds. And so it felt like you kind of had a lot of those big fish that maybe didn't spend that much time up shallow or like kind of making that their home this year. Where, I mean, we were seeing that on bodies of water that you kind of quote unquote say action lakes where, you'd move fish that I haven't moved there in a while, like on spots that I've been fishing for years, where all of a sudden like a mid to upper 40s shows up and you're like, well, that's never been there before.
Right.
Um,
It's
and I
funny
don't
you
know if,
say that, Matt,
yeah,
Max, because we were finding fish on like spots, just like you said, that normally weren't good, like secondary spots, and they were really good last year, you know.
like I told Gus about this one. I kind of go back to and laugh. Like I went out as like kind of just for fun. And I've told this, but like we got another smaller boat at the cabin that we keep on the Eagle River chain. And um, I went out just messing around in the morning, like no GPS, nothing. And I was, I don't even know what I was throwing, but all of a sudden I had this, and I've fished the spot a million times, and it's like it's a good spot, but I've never really seen like a giant there. And all of a sudden, like this freaking dinosaur comes in, and I text Gus. I'm like, dude, there's a upper 40s chilling at X spot. And he's like, Yeah, I mean, I can't remember, Gus, if you said that someone else had seen it or something like that, and then he ended up hooking that fish a couple weeks later, maybe even that same week. But it was on a spot that like, you know, just very, very like pedestrian spot, nothing special,
Right.
whatever. And I just think that some of those big fish slid up and made those spots just their home this last year. And I don't know if it was because there was just something fundamentally different with the way winter went down. Those panfish didn't get slaughtered in the winter. Maybe they felt more comfortable. I have no idea. Like I'd be really curious to know why that was. Because if you have a theory, I'd be happy to hear it.
I think the last actually couple of years now, the weed growth was really good. We had an early weed growth. I think the bait
Yeah.
just stayed in the weeds. We
Yeah.
never, we had some warm weather, but nothing like super warm to push them out into the cooler water. So they just stayed. And then you get those thick weeds and it's actually cooler inside the weeds. So I think the bait just stayed in there, that would be my opinion. And the shallower, deeper, I mean, darker lakes we fished, all the fish we found throughout the year were in the weeds. The only, suspended fish we did well on last year was Cisco based bodies of water where the fish, those fish are probably staying out there majority of the time anyhow. But we did well on those lakes too, even on weed edges in the evening and after dark. I mean, we had a really good end of June through July and some of August, good night bite going on. So,
Nice. Was that primarily blades and top water, or did you get something else going?
blades and cranks.
Big
Mm.
cranks,
Yep.
twitching them,
Medium
straight
size.
retrieve, or kind of
Actually, like the good old depth raider was a good one. B&N had a
yes.
suspended one and then slammers. And then the old 9-inch grannies too, we did really well on.
Mm-hmm.
Basically just a pull. I don't work anything crazy after dark, just a pull, a pause, reel in, pull, pause. The pause was always when they'd come and crush it. But
Yeah.
just
What
slow.
what would you do for the figure eight with crankbaits? Because those are already kind of tough. Would they
Yeah,
even
I
try
just
and
keep them straight, work them just like a
keep them
buck.
straight?
Yeah.
Okay. I figured so, but I just didn't know if you had like a pause in the corner or
No,
I mean I
no, I
typically
just
do
do the
straight as well.
kind of come up and then down again and just hopefully they hit before you even get there.
Yeah.
I don't know if we asked you this when you were on last time, but do you have any tips talking about figure eights at night? Um, I mean, I'm sure you've probably just been doing it for so long, you probably have a good feel for it, but do you have any kind of, I guess, what would the word be, like triggers to know that your bait's kind of coming into the eight or anything like that? I mean, or is it just more of a feel thing for you?
Pretty much a feel thing for me. I do have like glow beads on there, or sometimes you can, like those ice fishing, slip bobber knots,
Mm-hmm.
those
Oh
strings,
yeah.
you can tie those on, maybe 4 or 5 inches above your leader. Tie one on tight and just glue it down. And then when you reel, you feel that tick onto your rod and then you can go right into your figure eight. That kind of helps. After a while, they slide off, but it works because you'll just feel it tick and then you just go into your figure eight. But
Hmm. That's good tip. Yeah, I've
that's probably the tip I got. And everyone thinks too at night these fish just inhale on the figure eight, but it's basically it's a weight. You're just going around all of a sudden it feels like you got a clump of weeds set back.
yeah.
They usually just come up and just kind of just suck onto it and swim right with it.
Yeah, I think, man, I mean, we didn't really do a whole lot into the night. I did have one solo occasion. I just trying some big blades at dusk and I lost two in the figure eight because I didn't like you said I didn't really feel them. It was kind of weight and the blades are
Mm-hmm.
so damn big that they didn't eat it. I don't think they're that big of fish, but they didn't eat it far enough. The blades were just still spinning. So it was a lot of force to go back and I who knows, I was probably half sleeping or whatever. I was probably fishing since sunrise or
Right.
who knows, but yeah, that's about, all we kind of tried a little bit, here and there just into dusk, but
If
something
you
we're
got your lights
definitely
on the boat too, you kind of see the blade, and every once in a while you might catch a glimpse of it. But basically when you're going around, it's just gonna feel like you just hit a big clump of weeds or something and then set the hook. None of them come boom and
Interesting.
down, just like just some weight on your line.
Yeah. And when you pick blade color, I guess I know a lot of people say, go to like a darker blade or a painted blade, but would you do like a metallic maybe so that you can see it in your boat lights or if like the moon's up at all?
Good. Last year we black and nickel was hard to beat.
Yeah.
Black and nickel. I mean, it was like you put that on you for catching fish.
Hmm.
It's like I didn't even use that. I do like, like flame blades. Those can be
Hmm.
really good after dark. Well, pink. Pink's another really good one. Uh,
Pink.
uh,
Interesting. I don't think I own a pink blade. Maybe
no,
We
one.
got one, we got one spinner bait. One, yeah, we got a pink blade. I think I stole from you though.
You did. Oh
The
yeah, yeah,
Taka.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's so funny, like, we're talking about show season earlier and all the new colors and everything, and now you're sitting here saying throw on that black nickel but that black nickel bucktail and it's gonna
yep.
get it done.
I don't know. Last year, black and nickel is hard to beat. And it's usually hard to beat anytime, after dark. It's just a good combination, black on black. But yeah, it was all like small and medium-sized bucktails too last year. We've got a couple fish on bigger blades, but like the year past, everything was on real big blades. So super
That
grills and
was
so
kind of true for us. Yeah, I don't, other than those couple hits in the dark, and I could maybe try and recollect another time or two, but yeah, it was mainly small blades. The rabid, the rabid girl and rabid squirrel was good for us for single blades. Meps, of course, always. Double eights. It seemed like double eights caught almost 50% of the bucktail fish. And then towards the end of the season, we started getting some really good bites on like the hunty tails and here and there we'd always get some musky frenzy fish, for Max and I know Max got a couple in the IC7, had a couple clients with that one too. Um 8-9's always been a
You throw that
staple. Yeah.
IC7 at all, Brian?
not very much. I know they're nice baits. I threw a lot of well, we started off with a single grill was in spring was unstoppable. Um
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you're probably a little bit more with the Musky Mayhem.
I mean,
I yeah.
Hmm.
I like do they I mean I guess like for their yeah, so their downsized blades, like would you say that I mean last year when you talk about smaller blades, like what size is that in the Mayhem category that you were
a
doing well
single
on?
girl is the fluted what is it?
Oh, Indiana kind of, or yeah, the size 7 or 8 or 6 or
Yeah.
something, Indiana fluted.
Okay.
Yep. And has the marabou
Okay.
on a little bit of tinsel. Yeah, that was a killer. Then just a double showgirl too was pretty good.
Hmm.
Did well on.
Yeah, most of that stuff on our end was either, rebuilt stuff. I pulled apart a couple Booker 500 and 700s and I would mix and match some things and I feel like they made a little bit more noise. We had some luck there for single, but just a straight up um rabid girl right out of the box was awesome. I know I kind of got that through I know my buddy Clayton was catching on single Colorados and Taylor Flannery was catching on single Colorados and it seemed to just like kind of go we were all fishing different lakes and they were just going on that for a lot of June and a little bit of July.
Yep.
So the single blades were solid.
Yeah.
Crazy that single blades can be so effective. I feel like everyone wants to kind of double up, throw those, double eights, double
Well, they
tens.
always have been affected. It was just everyone started using double. Everything had to be
Yeah.
double. Another,
Right.
the smaller grenades were really good last year too. We did really well on the small grenade,
Oh,
especially on the Cisco based legs.
Hmm. How do you like to work the grenades?
I just reel maybe twice throughout the retrieve. I'll just give it a little pump and just reel like a bucktail basically. And when it pump it, it kind of just flares up, drops, and then
Mm-hmm.
you reel it in. 2 or 3 times
You
to retrieve, give it a little
you
pump.
working at like 8, 10 feet down on those Cisco base lakes with those grenades?
Yeah, if you're seeing the bait, whatever, 10 feet down or something, we're hitting the surface and just reeling them in right away. We don't count them down.
Okay,
Yeah, we're keeping it up in the top 15 feet. Yeah, 15 feet at its deepest.
it's good to know.
That's a good bait. I don't know, did you
Yeah,
guys use them at all last year?
I tried a little bit, but honestly, if I'm, being honest with myself, no, I just didn't break it out of the box a whole lot. We had success and found some fish a few years ago, but last year, no,
They
honestly
were loving
not.
them in Madison 2 years ago when we
Yeah,
were
Madison,
pre-fishing
they're
for the
loving them.
PMTT.
Oh,
They
really?
were going nuts for him pre-fishing, and then didn't, for whatever reason, they decided they knew it was the tournament hours, and they decided not to eat those then. But
Sounds
pre-fishing,
right.
we were shaking them off, at the boat, trying to not have them eat them.
Okay.
And that was really the last time I think we've stuck to them. Like as a bait that I've always thought would be super effective, but for whatever reason, yeah. Now that you mentioned it, I don't really feel like we threw them as much as we probably should have.
Yeah,
No,
so
on
it's
blades
something different.
wise, yeah, on blades wise, like just looking back, I mean, 2024 was overall a really solid year for us. And for the blades, you can probably narrow it down to basically like a select six that Max and I would pretty much exclusively throw, or I'd have clients throw, it felt like. And then the times we'd switch up and get a new fish on a different bait, it seemed like was anytime our Bryan joined us in the Northwoods, then
Okay.
he'd catch a bait on something I haven't caught one in like 2 months
I think I
on.
heard that on one of your podcasts.
It's just out of nowhere. Like opening weekend, he got however many fish, and I think every fish was on a different bait. I think he had four on opening weekend, and they're all four different baits. That's just
His classic is he'll catch a fish on a bait and then like he'll change within the next 15 minutes. And it's like,
and
what are you doing? You just got a fish
He's
on
your bait
that bait.
tester.
Yeah. He's like, I'm just trying to stay ahead of the curve, man. You know?
he
Good
sometimes
guy for you,
is.
Gus, but for guiding, having a guy like that, finding what's hot and what's not, testing all different baits out for you.
I've had a few clients like that. I had actually a kid last year. He was, oh man, he was so into it. His name was Grayson, and he actually spent the majority of time just opening my tackle box and just looking in it, pretty much. But he would just pick something out and just toss it. After like an hour, I went from split rings to stay lock snaps because I could only take a bait on and off so many times for him,
Right.
and keep the boat, going straight. But he threw just about everything in the box, and it was funny to watch. We didn't. I think the bites and stuff we got were still on stapled baits,
Oh, so
because
he didn't surprise you with anything like, oh, wow.
he
Okay.
didn't really know. I did get a surprise. His grandpa who was with did raise a fish that almost ate a bucktail that was never spinning the whole cast. It almost annihilated it both sides. So that was pretty crazy to see. I was like,
Wow.
holy shit. And that's when we knew they're on. It was a good little quick morning um on that day. No, nothing surprised me. Oh, I was on maybe more of like a bigger rubber bite, and he had some hot follows on mini Medusa. I
Okay.
haven't thrown small rubber in a while, and he was working it what seemed like, a little bit slower off the front, and he was getting a lot of good follows. I do remember that. That was on the second day we went out. And that got me thinking for sure. Um, because mainly I was getting a lot of fish on reg dusas and pit bulls. Um, that seemed to take the show for rubber. But I know you yourself hammered them on pit bulls.
Oh, pit bulls were on fire in June, beginning of July. Yeah, it was hard to even keep them going because I only had a handful of them.
Hmm.
First gave a couple
Getting
handfuls out there and they were
shredded.
just getting shredded so fast. I was like, oh. Then we didn't get the shallow ones till, a little later, but
Hmm.
in June, the pit bulls were, that Hanson perch was just unstoppable.
We got
I was gonna have Gus and I guess which color was rocking for you, and I was gonna guess
Sorry.
the Hanson perch.
That, that was Hanson perch was,
we got that one too. It was so good. That was one of those rubber baits that I know I talked with Jeff Widman a lot, and I think he did as well with all the people that either tested them or used them early, is that he was kind of worried that it was too close to the same. But as soon as people started catching them, and then yourself and myself, I was telling them right away, I'm like, this one's different right out of the box. This one just catches flat out. I mean, it literally made us. I we didn't catch a single fish last year on a reg dog or a mag dog. We just didn't throw them. The pit
yeah.
bull was just so much. I don't know. It seemed like it worked better. I don't know how to explain it.
It has that darting action to it, it almost like hops. If you can get it going in
Hmm.
nice rhythm, it has that nice hop, dip, drop,
Feels
bounce it
bouncier.
around
Yeah,
with that extra different head weight to it, it kind of just rips around.
almost makes me want to try different head weights with like a reg dog or something like that
Right,
too to kind of
right.
bring those back in the rotation because that was a staple for us for a while. If we couldn't get anything going on like a mid or a reg deuce or something, we would go right to the reg dog if things were tough. And the reg dog that caught all the fish was the standard harness where we had the head bent, you know, not at a 90, but it was it was bent pretty good to make it
Yep.
hop and
Yep.
dart.
You can do that with the Medusa too.
Yep.
It'll be exciting in the spring to have them now, the shallow pit bulls, because we didn't have them last spring, and we were fishing them actually in 2 feet of water. As soon as they'd hit the water, we just rip them up high, keep them up high and rip them, and we were just pounding fish. And I mean, it would be a lot
Yeah.
easier with a
Shallow version.
shallow version that you're not having to rip so hard to keep them up.
So you brought up spring for this year. I mean, I know we're still a good bit off here. What day is it today? February
Too long.
11th. So we got what, one, two, a little over 3 months and some change till Northern Opener, but I know you are a Southern Opener guy as well. I might be retiring from that after last year. But
Myself included.
um
You guys are throwing in
so
the towel.
yeah,
Yeah, waving the white flag after 1 year of high water. Not cut
so
out for that.
Last year was tough down there. That was tough. That was
we'll
Yeah.
see. Talk to me in end of April after Cave Run. We'll see how Cave goes this year. If I go another 5 days without catching a muskie, I'll probably just wait until Northern Opener, not beat myself up for, you know, the first month of the season. But anyways, so spring fishing, I would say you have been touted as a glide bait aficionado in your day. Um, and that kind of goes hand in hand with spring fishing. We can talk about the glide bait stuff and kind of which ones you'd like to use, but if you're not throwing a glide bait in the spring, first of all, kind of lay out your spring for us. What trips you got on the docket. You're obviously going to probably do that Southern Opener again, but what
yeah.
what
We start off.
yeah, what trips are you doing, and then what types of baits are you kind of looking at throwing?
I usually always start off in the Wisconsin River, southern half, where it's open. Um,
Hmm.
then and basically concentrate on weeds. I mean, wood on channels close to channels, any kind of wood close to any channels. There's not much for weeds down there, so you're not really fishing weeds. Some muck, shallow spawning muck bays. You can get them in there if it's a sunny, warmer day. But it's basically just we're fishing wood opening weekend. But as far as bait
Mm,
goes, I mean, it's hard to beat a glide bait. Slow moving glide bait or a small twitch bait. Depending on their mood and water temps, even smaller bucktails too. We catch them on. We've done really good on just like Rizzo Whizzes opening weekend down there. But we're not burning them in or nothing. It's just a really slow retrieve. But key with like the gliders down there, it's just being erratic. I fish with so many guys and I just see them, it's just the same motion, pop, 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 pop coming in, and you just want to get erratic, pop, pop, stop, pause, pop, more erratic you can make it, the more bites you're gonna get. That's just key. And then getting close as you can without getting stuck on wood. So,
And
and
what
I
type
Right.
don't know
of
about you guys, but my partner last year had a tough time. He was catching on trees. He caught like every 2 minutes in a tree. And something happened that night that was going on at the motel there that some guy stayed up really late. I don't know if you guys were part of that, that had my partner out there really late because
Maybe.
every other
I don't
cast he was
remember.
in trees.
Depth perception went off a little bit.
It was way off.
I
Yeah,
mean, I
that'll
don't
happen to the
that
best of
was
them.
that was tough, man. That river was flowing really hot and going against the banks. If the river was high, there was a lot of, I don't know, extra branches it seemed like. We had a tough time figuring that out, in general.
It
That
was
was your first
so
time,
bad.
correct? In that area?
That's the first time I've ever put my rig on the Wisconsin River ever. I've
Okay.
actually never fished it even prior or in another person's boat. So that was an odd experience having, the rivers. I mean, we're going like over 3 miles per hour, just standing
So you
still.
were you were con see you were concentrating probably more on the main river channels where that current was obviously just cooking through there.
We did, yeah. We spent closer, majority of the time closer to a dam head on
Okay.
the few spots we went to, and the water was rushing. We did watch one boat catch one in a little back eddy from a
Yep.
dam, and we tried it too, because it was such a small spot. It was basically like either bumper boat or take turns. Like if the person wasn't going to camp there for an hour and they would leave, like you could go in and just literally hammer the same spot, same spot, same spot, and then leave if nothing happened. But I know that you were down further from a dam and doing more like multi-channel current
Correct. Yeah.
eddies. We
The
probably dropped the
areas I'm
ball on
fishing,
trying that.
the current isn't that fast. You get a little current through there, but it's nothing major.
I mean, we made some pretty big runs that weekend trying to find some less fast water. It just felt like no matter where we went, we were underprepared as far as preparation. We didn't do any preparation. And then that was our first mistake. And then mistake two was we had four of us in the boat. Um, our buddy Bryan and Jack, and Gus will be the first to attest to this, but when things start to go south with that crew in the boat, um, I would say morale shifts pretty quickly, and it kind of becomes more of a just a yap fest of giving each other a hard time over actually focusing on musky fishing.
Well,
And
I couldn't imagine four guys in a boat fishing 3 miles an hour casting that wood is a good.
No,
it was
no.
bad. It was
I'm
bad.
ve-
I mean,
I'm thankful we even hooked into a couple smallmouth to keep those guys preoccupied because it
Yeah, I
was
never
just
really
tough.
got to meet up with you guys that week. I would have, pointed in some different directions and stuff, but I never even seen you guys the whole weekend. We kind of went different
yeah,
directions. So
that was our fault. We should have
Yeah, it
stuck
was
to the
our
plot a
bad.
little clearer. I mean, we kind of, like I said, it was just one of those weekends where it was fun to just get out there and drink some beers and be out on the water. But yeah, we kind of ran all around the area, and it was just like, oh, let's try this little stretch. This looks cool, and we'd go out there, and then like within 40 minutes, we're like, should we leave? This,
let's go.
so with musky fishing, like that's not a good recipe to
Right,
catch
right.
fish. Like I just think mentally, it's when you get out of your comfort zone like that. Like we're used to it a little bit more now. Kind of traveling around and doing some of these tournaments, and I think we embrace it when we're doing the tournament stuff because it's like, well, you have to fish here. It's
Right.
like you can't go anywhere else. But that was a whole, like Gus said, that was the first time really putting his rig on a river like that, and for the three of us, um Gus aside, like we haven't done much fishing like that, so
Yeah,
it was
you
just
guys
like
were
hard
in
for us
some
to wrap our
pretty,
head around.
I kind of have an idea where you were, and that's pretty brutal at that time. It's totally different where we're fishing.
Hmm.
It was rough for me because I blew my motor that weekend on that Friday I got there, so I didn't even have a motor. We got around with a trolling motor and my kicker motor, but so it pretty much kept me limited to a pretty short area to fish.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you, if you guys want to come down, if you go down next year or this spring, I'll point you kind of in a little better direction. That's not so brutal to fish in spring.
Give us some
Sounds
ropes we
good.
could tie up. A
Yeah.
little mega
And
drift.
every year is different, on the river down there, I
Yeah.
do really like late springs when it comes to fishing in the river down there because we can get the bigger females because it's a pre-spawn.
Okay.
So you'll get some of those big females up there. You get them hot springs and it kind of seems over and you just get small males going. But if you can get a cold spring, it's dynamite. But we always seem to put some big fish in every opener down there. But last year was tough. Last year was one of the last year was probably one of the tougher years we've ever had down there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think on water temp too. I think it was right in that 50-degree range, like
Uh,
52,
and then,
53.
yeah. And see
Yeah.
some of the sloughs that we were fishing was even higher, 57 and stuff. So it was, yeah, they were pretty much doing their stuff. Even though I didn't see, because a lot of times when you see them spawning, you'll see them paired up and their fins are coming along the shoreline and whatnot. We didn't see any of that. And another thing, it's almost a carp spawns happening at the same time too. And we didn't see a ton of carp this year either. So it was kind of an odd
Hmm.
combination this past spring on there. A lot of
I
times you
wonder if this year,
shallow
I
sloughs
wonder,
and just carp loaded in there.
yeah, makes sense. And I wonder if this year with the amount of ice that we're getting in the state of Wisconsin, and sounds like we're going to get some more snow here over the next month, that things will be a little bit more normal. I mean, we'll see
I
how
hope
it
so.
goes, obviously, and in March and April. I mean, I think that always plays such a big factor into
For
how
sure.
things are kind of leading up to that spring. Like, you can erase a lot of inches of ice with a few good hot weeks and end of March, early April. But yeah, I think we're probably due for whatever you say a normal spring
Right.
is. I feel like
I
it's
think
been
it's
a
kind of
while.
getting, we're a little short on snow, but otherwise it's pretty normal for weather wise. You know, last few years, like last year, we didn't have any snow, but the year before that, what didn't we have? Record snow and
Yeah,
record cold and
Record light
record
snow or
everything. So
whatever.
now we're kind of
Yeah.
just averaging out again. So,
yeah.
but yeah, it
Yeah, I
would be
think
nice to have an average, just normal year.
yeah, I'm hoping so. I'm staying optimistic because last year was one of the most bizarre things ever. I mean, ice went off on over half of the lakes in northern Wisconsin in March when
Right.
we had a warm up, and then they refroze again.
Yep.
It was the most bizarre thing. And then they opened up again by like April 10th or something like that. And I was able to get on and go bass fishing, which is a lot of fun actually. Um, but yeah, that river fishing was just so yeah, foreign to us. I know you're talking about wood. Do you mainly look for backwater stuff in that
Hmm.
springtime frame, or do
For
you
sure. For sure. Yep.
not much off the
Especially
main
if there's like some
channels?
kind of creek or there's a river channel going through it, some kind of channel going through a little deeper water that they can come in from the main
Hmm.
river and follow that channel up. And then if you got some wood coming into the deeper channel, if the tree is coming down or some stumps in there, make it all the better. So
Yeah. Is there when you raise a fish in the springtime and with the moving water, do you find that you can see that fish again, like later in the day or the next day, or is it pretty
certain
hard to?
areas I do, like on the main river channel and stuff when we fish them, we don't normally. It seems like they're traveling. And even
Mhm.
in those sloughs, some of them are travelers. They go in and then they work their way out. But there's certain areas it does seem like we'll hit a fish. Oh, there's a fish. We'll move down, we'll come back around, and that fish is still staying in that area. Just I don't know what holds the fish in that, maybe it's just a great tree or a great combination, but they're holding there. Um, but like the next day, I guess when I think about it, some of the areas I fish, just there's certain trees where there's a combination of bunch of trees in an area, it just holds fish. So, you can go,
Mm,
I don't know if it's the same fish or but there's always fish in them. So,
yeah. And that is that like area dependent? Because one thing at least my little bit of river fishing that I have is trout fishing on smaller streams like wet wading. And from what I saw year after year, if we had a big flood or something like that, there'd be these stretches that I'd go to and they would completely change. Like this log jam that was there last year got blown out and it's gone and I can't even find a trout there. Is that kind of similar for
Oh, for
muskies in those
sure,
trees?
for
Or
sure, for
yeah.
sure. Yep, if the landscape changes, obviously the fish do. Even like some of those areas and all the river, all the flowages and everything, certain areas will have tons of stumps in them, and throughout the years they just get old, ice moves them and everything moves, and next thing you know, your bay that was full of stumps and trees all over, and there's fish always every spring or summer, and now you go in there and there's, you know, half the wood in there and no trees coming off the shore, they're gone, and then the fishing's all changed.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, that
you
makes
get the new ones, and that's one thing I tell guys too, with the newer trees, it's like I never get fish off the new trees. They look good in the water, they just fell that year, but it seems like, I don't know if they put out acid or something, but it's really hard to get a fish off a new fallen tree.
Oh,
Seems
that's
like they have to
interesting.
be in the water for a while. So,
yeah.
That's interesting.
I mean, to an extent, Max, we've seen that with pan fishing trees on the chain growing up on a few of those trees that were just, on fire for a couple of years. It seemed like we could always get walleyes and crappies off of them, and then they just like it seemed like branches were deteriorating off of them, or people, snagged them and ripped them off over time. And then those fresh trees we tried, and they never, if you still saw
uh,
leaves on the tree, they didn't work.
yeah,
They
you'd
didn't
think
hold
with the
fish.
leaves and everything, there'd be something in there, but I can't get anything out of it.
Mm-mm.
From downfall.
Yeah. Back in the day, those were our fish finders. See a tree in the water, it's like, oh
Yep.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But that's spring fish in the river, so.
Yeah.
Hmm. What about
Go
for
back to the roots.
lakes? Let's just go with, I don't know, I'll kind of give you a scenario so it's not too generalized. Let's do a panfish sucker base system, uh, stain to it that you're looking for, semi smaller, and you're just hitting that 60-degree mark and you're around opener. What's your game plan there now that there's, no current or maybe there's no wood? What are you looking for? Like, what are your top couple things, whether it's, weeds, rocks, shallow water, deep edges, that sort of thing?
Hmm, good question. Well, it's hard to beat, to start off with a smaller bucktail. Someone in the boat's always going to throw small, starting off with a small bucktail for sure. And then I'll go small twitch baits, like a 7-inch slammer. I really enjoy using them. And what you're talking is pretty much our opener weekend, up in northern Wisconsin,
Mm-hmm.
in that mid 50s to 60-degree. And we catch a
Mm-hmm.
lot of fish on 7-inch slammers, probably one of my favorite. But I'm still using a lot of gliders then too. Um,
Yeah.
but really at that time, we're kind of trying everything out because we don't know exactly what's going on. Small tubes, unweighted small tubes, we've done really well on. Even some, smaller topwater, slow moved flop tails, smaller flap tails, we've done really well on creepers
Interesting.
early. Um, Although last year topwater wasn't very good in my boat. We didn't do very well in topwaters. But for
Yeah,
60, go
yeah,
ahead.
we didn't have a start at all for top water. I think it only got one in June personally, and then July and August it blew up. We caught a bunch of fish on top water, it seemed like. Um, with the smaller top water as well, the small flap tails and the small prop styles, we're getting it, but we've never, I mean, other than our Bryan throwing top water and opener, we don't throw top water on opener, it seems like, and have not had luck
Yeah.
doing it.
I'm personally not doing it, but someone in my boat will definitely have one on.
Okay.
I never guide opening weekend for us. I'm just fishing. I got a buddy that always comes up
Hmm.
and fish. Just try to put stuff together for, the rest of the year. But
I wish we had more of that midday top water bite in northern Wisconsin. I think we probably don't throw it enough. Like obviously if the conditions warrant it, we're throwing it, on a super low, hazy, cloudy day, or if there's some moisture in the air, we'll be throwing top waters. But like I was texting Gus last night actually because I was watching that Dick Pearson, Muskies on the Shield YouTube
Sure.
video. I don't know if you checked that out
Oh,
yet.
yeah.
But I mean, it was just so crazy to me to watch the amount of fish that guy caught on topwater baits,
Yeah.
middle of the day, sunny, you name it. And these fish are waking on this thing from, 50 feet away all the way up to the boat and
Good,
smashing them. I'm just like, oh, that looks so
good old wake of the woods.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know those guys wouldn't even wake up to go out fishing until like 9 o'clock in the afternoon and then stay out all day, just fish during the day.
Just living the dream.
But we've like in spring, opening spring up here too, I start off on a lot of the rivers up here too and do really well. Seem to
Ah,
catch
gotcha.
bigger fish early on the rivers up there.
And why do you think that? Because I haven't really done that much. I did a little bit last year for the first time. I actually did um go kind of more in your neck of the woods to a flowage in early June, and we saw some nicer fish. I mean, my buddy Jarrett raised a fish that um was in that upper 40 class, which we both joked to each other. We feel stupid for not doing it. We literally raised it on a glide bait, and we just didn't decide to do a throwback for rubber. We just were like, no, we'll come back for it, or oh shoot, it didn't eat the glide bait. We never saw it again. It was
Oh,
right off the river channel. It totally was on the move.
yep.
So we screwed that up pretty good.
So like you can see, I see a lot of big fish if you fish like Cisco based waters because you can hit them before pre pre-spawn on our northern opener here, and you'll see some big fish. It's hard to get them to go, to bite. And then you get those
Yeah.
shallow lakes. You can get more action, but you just don't seem to get many bigger fish. But the rivers, I just seem in the flowages, it's like a combination. You can get some good action, and for some reason or not, I don't know if it's just the location because a lot of them, they go up rivers and they're more easier locations to find, and the water temps. We just get a lot better size quality fish
Hmm.
every weekend and through that first couple weeks.
We,
So
we did we tried that out last year for really our first time. We hit a Cisco based lake, bigger system on opener and did really well with some
yeah,
really nice fish. And I think
Yeah,
you
we
just
did catch them in that transition.
exactly what you're saying is they were kind of just coming off that spawn and they were still
mhm,
hanging around. Like we we were fishing a spot that like we were about to move because Gus is like, yeah, I don't know, I've never seen anything here. It didn't look very good. And then we were talking with the guy that was sitting on his dock, and he's like, "You guys musky fishing?" Or like, "Yeah." And yeah, like, what gave it away? And, uh, you know, and he goes, "Well, I just saw two muskies 2 days ago. They were paired up, really nice ones, right off my dock here." And we're like, "Oh, thanks." We just keep working down, and like 2 minutes later, our Bryan ties into like a really nice mid-40s fish,
nice.
and landed it, and we're like, oh, thank God we stuck this one out. And I'm assuming it was just, yeah, one of those fish that was probably paired up and did their thing and just haven't really
I think we
bounced
got the
out to
other one
the
too, about
yeah.
10 minutes later.
Really
Another mid 40s we caught about 10 minutes later, about a
nice.
quarter mile down the bay or down the shoreline. So
And that's the cool thing about, deep clear lakes. You hit it the right time, you can get some nice fish, and there's not the fishing pressure is, half as bad as, like your
right.
small shallow lakes where every musky fisherman in the world's trying to get some fish in the boat. And you go to your deep clear lake and you find some
Hmm.
fish and you hit it at the right time. As you
Yeah,
guys, it
and
pays off.
and they were eating, not your typical early spring baits either. I mean, I think we got one that day on a big beaver and pit bull
Oh,
and
good.
tube.
A
Nice.
And
tube.
yeah, so it was, I don't know if it was a 10 inch or a 7.5, but
It was the Ninja
uh,
tube.
Ninja Tube 7.5. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but
So,
still with the trailer blade, I mean, that's, a little bigger
right.
than a Mep's number
It's an
five.
aggressive bait. It was the mid-depth rig.
Okay.
I wasn't working it slow by any means.
Yeah. No,
So
you can get some dandies. I've seen some really big. I mean, we haven't got any real anything over 50 opening weekend, but I've seen some well over 50, opening weekend on some of those deep clear lakes coming in pretty decent. But
Yeah. Makes you wonder too, like it's probably fun to do that a little bit more and especially on some of those like real trophy waters
Mhm.
because there's probably not too many times a year outside of like a Cisco spawn when those fish push up that shallow.
Exactly.
Visually
Exactly.
see
That's
them
just
even
a
if you
great time. You find some good weed growth and, you get on that north side or any, wherever the wind's been blowing for the last few days and find some weeds over there. You have a good shot of a really trophy fish starting off your year. So,
this is making me excited for 3 months from now.
Yeah.
you say 3 months, but before you know it's going to be here, it
Yeah, we
seems
were
a ways
just
away.
talking about how quickly time goes. I was like, man, I feel like we just talked to you and we looked back and it was literally this time last year that we
Right.
chatted and
It's scary.
pretty nuts.
All
Scary
last
indeed.
year. Last year was just such a weird year, just from the get-go. I mean, both openers, I had both problems. And I mean, even going into hunting, I'm a big bow hunter. So going into hunting, the hunting was even crazy, like way different than it has been in the past. I mean, they were using different air. Everything was just different. It was just a different year. Different winds, different weather.
Yeah. Interesting. I guess on that end, we talked about this extensively, literally from basically middle to end of October, pretty much through January. I feel like it got brought up, but since we're fishing the same, relative area and counties, what was, and I know you said you hunt, but when do you kind of fish until in the fall? And what did you see for where you're finding fish? Because we found fish way shallower than we would have thought in that fall time frame, and even into November. I think it caught a fish as shallow as 2, 3 feet on the second weekend of November on a
Yeah, I
non-Cisco
heard you
based
guys
lake.
talking about that. I kind
Yeah.
of stopped taking guide days right around Halloween. I keep the
Okay, so
boat.
you still fish pretty late.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll keep the
Yeah.
boat open, but I don't take guide days after Halloween because Halloween I start hitting the woods a little more. But I'll agree with you. We never had, at least in the time I was fishing, they were starting to stage up in some of the deeper holes right before I got done. Last year it was Halloween for me. I never did make it back out afterwards. I kind of
Hmm.
got stuck in the woods and they had my number
Yeah.
to get me out. Um, but I was finding a lot of fish staging in some lakes right off the deeper holes.
Hmm.
But still a lot of fish right on the weed edges too, that 12-foot weed edge, even in October there. Even after the
Yeah.
turn, we still were finding them somewhat shallow. The deep holes still weren't holding fish for me.
Yeah,
So,
it was tough. It was weird. I tried it. I tried some of that steep rock or steep drop-offs that, would, depending on the lake, but in extreme cases would drop off into 30, 35 plus feet of water basically.
mhm.
And we, via electronics, at that time of year I'm running suckers, so I'll bring the live scope back in the boat, but via side image and live scope, they were still there, but we couldn't catch a damn fish on that. And then as soon as we went and tried, and we would go through majors and minors and sunrise and sunsets and all sorts of stuff, and I just got so frustrated that they just went back to weeds. We're catching them pretty much in July and August, and they were there.
Right.
The size was not superb, I would say. Not until I actually started targeting the Cisco spawn on Cisco lakes. And even that, couldn't get those suspended or deep fish during the day to bite. As soon as it hit 2, 3 p.m., you just get right up on the edge or the weed edge in, I don't know, damn near 7 to 14 feet only. And then that's where they are.
Yeah.
And then that's where
I'll
they
agree with
bite.
you 100%. When we were out there sucker fishing, it seemed like we had a good late morning bite and then right at
Hmm.
dusk in the same areas too. And if you found fish, you found fish. It's like they all bunched up, which normally in the
Hmm.
fall you get a lot of that too. But when you found one, there was more than, you found a lot of fish.
Yeah.
They were bunched up. You could
Yeah,
go
they were.
forever and not see anything, all of a sudden, boom, and then there were
Hmm.
numerous fish in the area. So when you found them, you're in a good area. You didn't have to, go too far.
No, they seemed packed up like fishing the same spots we would midsummer. I was bouncing like waypoint to waypoint or bouncing in different areas of it. And I'd think to myself, I'm like, oh, usually we'd raise one here, catch one here. But in the fall, I was like, nope, 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 there they are. And then you
No,
kind of had to pinpoint, even
right.
though it was a big area and typically, a good summer drift, so to speak. Um, but yeah, those deeper fish, I don't know what the heck was going on. Not that I was trying to target like super deep fish or anything, but I think the deepest fish I've made a mental note was on a sucker in like 18, 19 feet of water. I
Okay.
remember where I actually was keeping the sucker closer to the bottom. Like that break line went to about, I think 19 was the deepest spot. And that was it. Everything was shallower in the
Okay.
fall. We
Yeah,
just couldn't
before
get
I put the
anything
boat,
deep.
like we were fishing some, came down to 42 feet but there was nothing in the deep holes, no bait or anything, all the bait, and there was just monster piles of bait, but it was all in that 18, anywhere from 24 to 18-foot flats right before the deeper holes. And the bait was
Uh,
just stacked up there and that, but like I said, that was like the week or two before Halloween. So,
yeah. And really I mean, the way I mean it's still crazy that we have similarities and stuff, but realistically up here you can kind of have some different bites going
hmm,
on different types of lakes big
for
time,
sure.
you know. It's just they're not always going to be as shallow as maybe what I'm saying or as deep as
Right.
what Brian's saying, but that's just based on what lakes you're fishing.
Right, that was on one particular lake, and another lake was a more shallow lake, and the same thing. We were getting them in the weeds, casting some glide baits and jerk baits, and they're coming out of the weeds, but on the weed edge, we're catching them on suckers, and we move out in about 13 feet of water, and we're getting them on suckers there. So, and that was at the same time period. So every lake had its own little, you know,
Hmm.
feeding area. But one thing in common, it's when you found fish there in that. I mean, if someone seen me fishing last year out there, they'd be like, God damn, that guy's camping in around that area. There's just so many fish. It was like, why leave these fish? We know there's 15 fish in this 200
Right.
yard
Yeah, no
area.
reason to
Yeah.
leave.
I think that goes a lot with like the area that we all fish a lot. It's like you just can kind of like throw out every single handbook for musky fishing. I feel like a lot of the times you just got to go and figure it out each and every day almost. It feels like,
Yep.
I mean, we sit here and it's I have a blast doing it every winter, we just the best part about this podcast is you can kind of just chat about what happened last year, what do you think might happen this year, but there's just no hard and fast rules to this thing. I mean,
No, there isn't. And I've been doing it for so long, and every year is different.
yeah.
Every year is different. And it always just kills me when I hear some guys, they seem to have the answers for everything, and there's an answer for everything. And it's like, there really isn't, because it changes daily,
No,
weekly,
yeah.
yearly. I mean,
I completely agree there. I think, yeah, if somebody says they
crazy.
got this musky fishing nailed down to a T, I think they're full of shit.
Yeah,
You
you
know,
might have had one good
coming
week or a good year, but
right.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
that does seem to be a good recipe for somebody who thinks that they know exactly what's going on after a good week of musky fishing, you
right.
know.
Yeah, you're on
Kind
the
of just
water every day, you can put it together and you got a good year, but I mean, it changes every day. I don't care who you are and
Yeah.
how good you think you are and how good you're doing, you're having tough days.
Yep.
It's changing and you're
That's
never
kind
on
of the
all the time.
right. That's kind of goes to the stereotypical tournament angler that ended up not catching anything during the tournament, but they're the ones that walk to the registration like, oh, we just hammered 9 of them in the last 3 days. They were eating troll and topwaters, you name it. And then you don't see their face
Right?
the rest of the weekend. But
When I used to fish the PMTT, it would kill me because you'd always hear that, and it's all those guys. Very rarely you would ever see their name on the boards, like they spent all their money before the tournament even started, and uh,
hmm
it's like holy. And when I think about even the pre-fishing I've done when I fish the tournaments, if I'd done really well pre-fishing, I had a terrible tournament. I don't know why, but it's probably the same thing. I burnt all my money, burnt all my luck up.
yeah.
think
Yeah,
there's
bird.
something to be said about that, man. The musky
It's a
guys
thing.
just don't
right?
don't shine on you every single day. Like,
When they
oh,
shine on you, they shine on you. It seems like you can't do anything wrong, but
right.
there's been so many tournaments. I was confident we're going to be in the top three. You know, I'm on top of these things, and also the day of the tournament and everything's totally different. And it's like, whoa, how it was like for 2 weeks, everything was like bam, 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 and all of a sudden the tournament comes and it's like,
Yep. Yeah, weather changes or the bait stops working for some reason. Or, you hear the horror stories of people. Actually, this would be a good question for you. Maybe you don't have an answer for it, but we've heard it from some people. Going into a tournament, have you ever had a bait that was hot, but you only owned one of, and then you lost it or it snapped off or something? Because we've heard that from some people, and that would be like a nightmare, because you can't just get off the water and buy one or whatever. I don't know.
yeah. So yeah, kind of. So we were in Kentucky. I was with Keys with the PMTT, and the year before, I think we took third, and we did really well on Phantoms. So then the next year, he signed with Chaos, and that's when Chaos had the well, I forgot what he calls it, the smaller glide bait, just like a Phantom. The
Blunt
Blunt
nose or round
nose or
nose?
round
one, no,
nose?
it's a smaller 6-inch one.
Oh
He
yeah,
just
blunt
came out
nose.
with them, so he only had like three of them. Rick had like three of them, so he gave us one. And we just got down there. Mike's using it. He's throwing it. We had one fish up. We're like, all right, they're still on. He's awesome, awesome. Whack. And he gets stuck on a stump way deep, and we ended up losing it. And that was like our only small glider. Especially with Keys, we can only use baits that are sponsored by. So that was our only one
Hmm.
small glide bait we had during that tournament. He lost it pre-fishing on the first morning. We weren't even out there for like an hour and a half, and he lost it. So
I mean, I probably know the answer to this real quick, Gus, but don't mean to cut you off. But
That's all right.
like, when you're fishing a tournament with Keys and you guys are only limited to using sponsored baits, I mean, did you feel like it's only natural? Like, did you only bring sponsored baits, or were there other things that were there where you're like,
no,
man, I'd love to just put a Phantom on right now.
oh
I
yeah,
feel
for
like I could
sure. I
do
mean,
good.
I always said, fishing with Keys in the PMTT was like fishing with one hand tied behind your back, because when I used to fish it before Keys, I would have one guy fishing out deep, fishing the break, and then one guy, casting up tight, shallow. And for Keys, so he has all the cameras facing, so we have to go down one shoreline. And then if we want to fish deep, then we got to turn around and come back down instead of going right through it. And then, he's got all great sponsors, but every once in a while, there's something else he might want to throw. And we have to just throw sponsored baits. So like in particular, that one bait, we knew small glide baits always work really well down there. And he lost it like in the first hour and a half, and that's all we had.
Yeah, I don't mean that to like knock any of the sponsored baits he has, because yeah, he is sponsored by awesome companies that make awesome baits. But I'm just thinking about what the front of our deck sometimes looks like during tough bites during a tournament, and
Right.
I can tell you right now, there's about
It's
17 different companies that are laying up on
Oh, for
top of
sure,
that
for sure.
boat, you know.
No doubt about it.
yeah.
Yeah, I think back. I mean, there's a picture. I don't know if where it is or why we have
I
it, but Chippewa flowage in 2023, we were struggling. I mean, really struggling. And I think I rifled through probably 35 baits one day.
that Max, the footage of my fish from Saturday shows like in the video, like when I'm stepping up more to the front to have you net it, when I like look down a little bit or when we net it or whatever, there is just it's everywhere. I mean, of every color too. It's like
Like a tackle box dumped
Piles.
over the whole front deck.
it's unreal. I
Yeah.
maybe we
We
should
were in a mental
post it at
dungeon.
some point.
I
It's
mean, we
pretty
were,
funny.
and sometimes, like it worked out for us that weekend. We ended up somehow miraculously getting two fish, but I feel like, when you start going that crazy with the changing of the baits, like it almost works. There's I don't know what the word is, but like it just starts working at actually against you, it feels like when you're
Well,
changing that
Sometimes,
much.
sometimes you just hit that,
yeah.
you put the dumb bait on, you think, oh, nothing of it, but you're just using it, also, wham, something
True.
different.
Every
Yeah.
once in a while, yeah. But that weekend, no, the two fish were literally caught on like the better catching baits of each category. An 8-9 stagger, frenzy, and then a
Sure.
suic. A good old weighted suic. That's it
Yeah, there's
wasn't
certain
anything
baits, I
outrageous.
mean, those in particular, if you just stick them out, sooner or later something's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's what we thought, but you spend all winter buying all these new baits and go all year having success with a bunch of different ones, and then it's like, yeah, it's hard to, yeah, I don't know. It was just a funny tournament, I think back on that and like the stuff that we moved pre-fishing compared to what we caught it on, it was just so different, and we've never had a tournament like that where we felt that lost, like,
Yeah.
or I mean, we just,
A Chippewa,
yeah,
Yeah.
I feel this every time I fish it, I feel the same way. I'm totally lost
yeah,
out, which I wouldn't because I fish a lot of flowages, but every time I go to the Chippewa flowage, I struggle.
I heard that whatever your flowage mentality or knowledge is, you throw it out the window for that lake. That's what I was told going into it.
Okay.
And I feel like that's
I believe
actually
it
somewhat
because
true.
there's anything I know about flowages, it doesn't do me any good when I fish the flowage over
yeah.
there.
I mean, the two fish we caught were on two spots we had never pre-fished and never fished before. And we fished them, I think, because they had names on a paper map.
Okay.
So
They're
we're
named
like,
for a
well,
reason.
their names. So there has been a
Yeah,
muskie here at some point in
gotta be
time.
good.
About the worst strategy you can possibly do.
Uh,
And
it worked. When you're at the bottom of the barrel, you gotta, start swinging.
yeah, I'd love to go back there and learn that system better and actually get on top of some fish because man, there's some brutes in there. I mean, we moved one pre-fish and that I still think about when I close my eyes. I
Yeah.
mean, it was probably
It was
I don't think I've ever seen a fish built that wide before my
it
entire
was
time
in
fishing.
the what I thought to be mid 30-pound range. It was so
Oh,
big. And it was in September too. Um, Came out of 2.5 feet of water of nothing.
all
Max
right.
was just burning double eights. You could see the thing's back coming out of the water from the whole way, all the way to the boat.
Yeah,
Beautiful body of water.
beautiful.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I know I
Great time of
fished
year.
2 years ago with a guy, was it last year or 2 years ago, with a guy that fishes a lot, and that's one thing I did learn from him. And actually it's the same way here on florages year round, but it was in September and I couldn't believe how shallow he liked to fish out there, you know. Foot of
yeah.
water, just on that sloppy weeds up in like a foot of water.
That spot that we moved that really big fish off of, we revisited a few times during the tournament, but um, it was great weather. System was kind of moving in. It was a perfect day for musky fishing, and it was like really shallow spot, and literally it was at the peak of the shallowest. There's a little sand hump that kind of came up with some fringe weeds on it, and it's like that fish was just camped there because the second my bait hit the water, it was like I saw it, my bait hit the water, and then I saw a big boil like a couple feet behind it. So that fish, I think, was just sitting there waiting for,
Uh,
whatever other bait fish to kind of come up onto that fringe stuff because the rest of it was almost choked out. And then I think it like did a complete 180 and started coming in. Like Gus said, I mean, it was following in that double eight for the entire cast. You could see the hump, like, talking about the Dick Pearson. It was like that, almost like a topwater follower. You could see the back of the fish. It was so shallow. And I couldn't reel that bait fast enough. That thing was chasing it down. And when I got into the eight, his nose was right on the back of the hook. And I still remember it. I just, it was pretty choppy and murky back where we were fishing. And like I did that first turn as fast as I could, and I saw that eyeball kind of turn to its side and he missed it and then followed it one more turn and never to be seen again.
wow. That was during
So,
tournament hours too.
no, that was I snuck out there with Gus a week before. We just did
Oh,
one
okay,
kind of random
pre-fishing.
day pre-fishing, and that was our first time really ever fishing it, like truly. And it was like maybe our fourth or fifth spots. We're like, oh shit. And I was thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, would have been nice to catch that fish, but we'll get that one during tournament hours.
Right,
And
for
we
sure.
never
That's what
saw
you're
it
thinking.
again. We never saw it again. So
It scares me, some of those big fish when they follow like that close on a bucktail though, it's when they're that close, it's like they almost don't inhale it, they just nip. And
Yeah.
actually getting hooks and getting them in the net is really, that's almost more scary. They just kind of just bite on the back end of it. And
I
Hmm.
know it sounds dumb, but like a fish that size, I couldn't fathom eating in the 8. It was like so big. Like when I made that first big turn, it would like, it almost had a hard time kind of, turned on its side. And that's when I actually saw it. And I'm almost like, that was yeah, like Gus said, it was 35-pound class fish. I hard to
uh,
get a length measurement on it, but it was
So
big,
wide. Yeah.
so wide, so wide.
nice.
That would have just blown up the entire water if he would have eaten right there.
That's bigger than anything I've ever seen out there.
Yeah, we we didn't we didn't see much big ones during the tournament. I mean, everyone seemed like people that were on them were catching some nice ones, and we found some decent ones, but nothing crazy. It's just weird, crazy fishery. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a beautiful body of water. But yeah, it has my number. I struggle. I struggle every time out there. Even when I go out there with guys that fish it quite often. I've only fished it a handful of times, but
Yeah,
guys that know it really well, and it's like, oh, it's just a bad day. I'm like, yeah, it's just me being out here. I don't know. I can't seem to catch anything out of this body of water.
I'd love to go out there with like Ty said it and just see how he fishes that body of water.
Uh, yeah,
Be
he
curious to
knows
know.
it. If
Hmm.
there's anyone that knows it, he knows it very well.
Yeah, and he was saying I just listened to his him on the Backlash podcast recently, and he was basically saying a lot of stuff you do throw out the window each year. It's brand new every year out there for him and spots. He says it's fairly rare on some one-off spots, whether maybe it's not, maybe the name spots are named for a reason, but the one-off spots, like he's got to figure them out each year.
Sure.
Um,
Let me ask you this, Brian, and I know we're kind of running along again, so whenever you need to tap out, you just let us know. But um, obviously, you don't need to name any lakes here, but last year, did you fish anything new that you had never fished before? And then this year, do you have anything in mind that you're going to go do some more exploring on um, that you got eyed up?
Oh, for sure. Last year I fished a handful of new ones. I don't guide new lakes when, I take the wife out or a friend out. I always try to pick something new to learn, we have so many bodies of water up here, but I always try to learn a few new lakes every year. So, and I do have a couple in mind this year. Um, and a couple of lakes that I just haven't fished in years that I'm gonna kind of revisit now. Um, because I've heard of different stocking going on in them and different things happening. So probably revisit a couple older, larger lakes I used to fish that I haven't fished in a while. So, but yeah, I
Any of the
always
new ones kind
add a
of
couple to my arsenal.
any of the new ones surprise you at all?
Um, no, not really, unfortunately. And because it was last year, so who knows? Maybe this year
Yeah.
but last year, the whole year was kind of a crazy year. So I didn't get any good surprises, put it that way.
Bummer.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I could say different.
yeah, we got a good bit eyed up. Um, I'm trying, like my notes keep growing. I'm trying to like keep it reasonable, but it's already becoming unreasonable amount for the whole summer. So I'm trying to prioritize some of the lakes because some of them are honestly they're either so far in the boonies they'd be tough to guide, or they're so small that they'd be tough to guide or exploit. So I kind of gotta, prioritize if I want to look for new guiding lakes or not
Right.
guiding lakes because some of them are just so far out there that yeah. Or you take the wrong person there and then boom, they're blown up,
Now, do you go up in Michigan much at all? Because you're right
Uh
at the border there, so.
doing a little bit. I mean, we're only 30 minutes from the
Right.
border. Um it's been worth the trip, trying some new stuff in Michigan, but we kind of did that a while back, and this past year I wasn't really able to as much because overall fortunate for myself, I've started to guide a little bit more, so I've had to hunker down a little bit closer to home.
Understandable. Yeah.
Because honestly, I think 2 years ago, I tried way more new stuff than last year overall. Um, Last year, if I tried new stuff, it felt like I would only have half days or shortened days between trips or something like that to go try something new. Whereas 2 years ago and beyond that, I was making day trips to try new stuff and really giving lakes chances or trying to hit two or three in a day pretty much and almost draw on a map like a little, you know, if I drive to this lake first on the way back, I could hit this one or these two. Um, but yeah, it's trying to go all over. A goal and I don't know how many years it is to pretty much fish almost every lake within, a 2, 3 hour radius of here, pretty
And
much.
the busier you get, the tougher it gets. And then you
Yeah.
got certain clientele, I can't go here. They're just not going to be able to handle that one. And you got to go here. And then you got a hot bite on this lake. Well, should I go back there? I know I can get fish in the boat for them. And next thing you know, the year's over. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
God, we made it over there.
Gus is
Yeah.
nice enough now where he just saves all of his exploratory missions for me. So that's been a real treat.
Hey,
I'm
they
just
can
kidding.
be pretty baller sometimes, but yeah, they can be some
Yeah.
terrible skunked eggs,
I
like
love them.
No,
I love doing it,
brain
yeah, no, it's
scratchers.
fun. It's fun. I'm just giving you a hard time. It
'Cause
can be
that's
great.
I
Great.
love it. I love it. I love the idea that we, there's a few lakes that I have fished that I'm actually not even sure if they're in there. I've gone as far as and spoiler alert, so far I haven't found any in those lakes. But I do I do want to try them. I like, old folklore and whatnot, and if it's connected via this river, it theoretically could or should
Right.
hold muskies. They've never ever been stocked here, but one could have swam up there and that's how you could find a genetic giant. That's kind of my thought process there. Maybe it might take a few years or who knows. Maybe I'm just driving down a road that's a dead end, but who
Well,
knows?
it's always fun when you're fishing those body of water, and after about 4 hours, you're fishing them, and you're just double thinking, and people on their docks are looking at you crazy because you're out there throwing big musky baits, and they're like, "What? Is he really fishing muskies out here?"
Hmm.
Pretty
Yeah,
sure they got
it's
to be in here, but
that's when I just hope I run into somebody at the launch and ask them, and hopefully they're not lying to me.
right, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
All right,
no,
Gus, you got
it's
any last questions for Bryan? He's been nice enough to join us again for 2 hours. So
yeah, I mean pretty much. Yeah, knocking on hour 45 here.
Good BS session. Kind of
yeah, that's great.
It was
floated all
solid.
over.
We'd always love having you on, Brian. Of course, we'll have you on again in the future, and we appreciate your time. I think overall we covered a lot, and it was fairly rejuvenating to. That was our first discussion on springtime muskies of the year. Have that in
Right.
February. Now we're on weather watch.
Yeah, get everyone itching to get out, and we'll have the Milwaukee show so we can do some more BS.
Yep. Oh yeah, I'll see you there.
You got
I'll
your
have a Yep, I got my seminar on Friday at 4 p.m. I'm going to talk about lure techniques and kind of maneuvers. I'm basically going to kind of boil down to a couple baits or bait categories that I like, and then a couple things I do differently. And then I'm going to have a rod with me so that I can kind of show everybody exactly what I'm doing with body position, rod position, that I think helps with better hookup because maybe some
Yep.
people don't always think about that when they're working a lure, to be
That's
more
that's that's
efficient.
exactly that's thinking outside the box because you're off position and you get that big hit, man. That's the difference between a fish in the net and
Hmm.
saying, "Damn, I just got slammed."
Yeah, it
Difference
happens
between a
all
good
too
day and a bad
often.
day.
Right? I
Yeah.
find myself all the time, especially when it's tougher. It's like, okay, and you're getting into a feeding window or something, making sure your feet are, everything's all in the right area and you're ready for that hit.
Hmm. There's that one video, Max, of on Bender weekend. Remember when I got that fish to hit me on the husky dusa, and you watch as I set the hook that both of my feet come off the ground to reposition because I was standing so square on the fish rather than like with, your hips to the outside a little bit to have a good hook set that I was I was just
Or
standing
you're
like,
squared up right with it.
yep, squared up right with it, throwing
Almost
almost a
took him in the
1 pound
water.
bait, getting yeah, annihilated like 25 feet out. So luckily that fish crushed it. Otherwise, I would not have had a very solid hook set. Um, if different scenario, but yeah, little things like that. I feel like that makes a difference, and the fact that I've been filming a good bit, I've at least been able to learn on my mistakes for this. I've been able to look back on all the lost fish or most of the lost fish and be like, okay, majority of the time it's kind of positioning, rod positioning, or if we do something wrong while fighting the fish. So, I think that'll be good
Yeah,
knowledge
that's
to pass
awesome.
on.
Learning things from your filming like that, looking back at it. And
Yeah, it's good.
Not everyone appreciates it.
not everybody, not that one video on Facebook that I think by the time this pod's out, it might hit 1 million views, I think,
oh,
which is absurd. Yeah, I mean, just to help grow my business and whatnot, I've been, posting small clips here and there. And one of them hit
over
the
and over,
Facebook.
Max.
It it hit the Facebook jet stream, and we got people from all over the world that think they know how to fish. A lot of people that don't even know what a muskie is or whatnot comment. Yeah, it's an interesting comment section, and for those interested in a good laugh, I know I got some comments and messages lately saying, thanks for letting us know to check out that video. But if you see any replies from me, just know that I'm pretty much just being a sarcastic smart ass to anybody, just to have a little fun. Um, but I stopped replying because it started to get ridiculous.
Unreal.
Yeah. But anyways, I think the only thing I have to add at Milwaukee is that I got a booth myself. If I'll be actually planted in one spot this time. Otherwise, usually I've been bad at just walking around way too much. It might hold me to buying less baits this time too,
Hey,
thankfully.
Gus, you know where your booth is at the show? Do you know where you're
I
planted yet?
don't yet. I
Okay.
wish I would know. I should probably yes, right. It's Mike. I should probably ask him where my booth is. I would like to know. Yeah, I don't really know. I don't have any closing items here. So with that being said, Brian, how can people get a hold of you and what's your availability looking like for this upcoming season?
I still have plenty of openings. June books up pretty quick, but summer's pretty open yet. Fall is open. But best way to get a hold of me is just my website at schaefferoutdoors.com. You can call me at 920-915-2650, and then watch Keys on KO TV. Check it out on KO TV.
Any more Bryan Schaeffer episodes coming up this year, or is
I
that
think there might be one or two more. I think. I don't know
nice?
exactly what he has rolling in right now, but I'm pretty sure there's a few more.
Okay,
Yeah.
look forward to
Awesome.
those.
I know
We're
it
look
was a rough year last year. Overall, so.
right. Well, Keith still
Work-
makes some
worked
great
hard.
content. He
It's
knows
the
how to
beauty of
tie
his
it
videos.
together.
He's a storyteller, he's just
Yeah.
a good storyteller. I don't care how tough the fishing is, it's always, like he says, an adventure. Great storyteller.
Hmm.
It's fun to fish with.
Yeah. Well, awesome. We're really looking forward to that. I think before we sign off here, on at Milwaukee Show, I will have merch, hoodies, t-shirts, hats, pint glasses, stickers, as well as, business cards
Sweatshirts?
and looking to book.
Say pictures.
Any what?
Oh, I said sweatshirts. Are you gonna have sweatshirts?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, sweatshirts. For sure. We'll have a couple with our original logo and then a couple with the new ones. Between this pod coming out and recording, we're getting the rest of our merchandise. So I'll be sure to get some pictures up before the weekend. Hopefully I can do that. Otherwise, they'll be at the show and I'll have some pictures um afterwards. But also give us a follow on Muskies on Tap on Instagram and Suggs Fishing on Instagram, and then also on Facebook for both, Suggs Fishing Guide Service and Muskies on Tap. So Bryan, thank you for sharing your time tonight. That was a lot of fun. Had a good chat. And
Oh, well, thanks for having me, guys.
yeah, of
Thank you.
course, excited to see you at Milwaukee, and we'll catch everybody on the next episode.